Hey, Zach, the last time you called and we recorded, a prison fight broke out. And I'm going to use that call for our first podcast episode. But I wanted to ask, did you ever find out what happened?
Yeah, I did a little later on that night. And it was definitely not what I expected it to be. So I think you should stay tuned, listen to the episode, and you'll find out what happened. All right, right now we're on the phone. I can hear, this is crazy because you just hit record. And I could hear, like, lockers and shit going fucking nuts downstairs. Like, people are fighting, but I don't know where, or you can hear them. You hear the basketball feet. It's like these people that I'm around aren't real prisoners, meaning they haven't done a lot of time in prison, because they're all standing on the landing right now looking. I can't see. It's underneath me. Like, so they're all standing, staring down there. So obviously, if you're staring down at something, people can tell, like, there's something going on. You know what I mean? Like,
well, can't the guard hear it?
Oh, the guard is outside. It's an older lady. She's like 75. She's not paying any attention. She's on the outside of glass. And they are like, they're still scrapping though, because I can hear them from upstairs.
But don't you want to watch?
No, I can't go watch. It's telling. No, but you can't just go watch. Like, if I say I was to get up right now and I stood on the platform and looked down there, these guys don't realize that. But that's like a form of telling. In a meeting in prison, you wouldn't do that because you're drawing attention to what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I would want to be nosy and know what's going on.
Of course you would. And that's why these people, the newbies, like the green ones, they do too, because, like, it's exciting.
I don't understand what a 70-year-old guard is going to do.
She wouldn't do anything at all. For one, she would call for help. She would radio in. She wouldn't even come in here by herself. I think they're, like, trained not to. But she would call for help. It would take at least 3 minutes for the officers to run upstairs. Then they'd run on the tier. They'd be like, stop, stop. They wouldn't stop. They would spray mace, and then they would proceed to put handcuffs on people and take them off the tier. But there's cameras all over the tier, and I can't see what's going on. But from what I'm hearing, maybe it started inside of a cell, but it's not inside a cell anymore. And I think a lot of people think that your doors are locked all the time, and that's the case in like a medium security prison. But I'm in a minimum security prison. Our doors don't even lock at all. They like open and close like your regular door for sure. And she has like literally oblivious to it. This guard has no. She looks like, if I had to guess what she's doing like a crossword puzzle or something sitting out there. I have no insight of her. No idea what's going on.
Is there any chance she knows something's going on and she's just not doing anything about it?
That is a good. I think that happens a lot too because they don't want to do the paperwork. Like if they see something. For one, if somebody gets caught like in a fight, you have to, and you're the officer that witnessed it, you have to write them a ticket, like, which is like a charge in here. So you have to write like a detailed, this is what I saw, blah, blah, blah. And that takes time. You see that a lot, especially when it gets to like the end of a shift. Like our shifts are from like 7 to 3, 3 to 11. So if like a fight breaks out at like 10:45 or something crazy happens, you will notice a lot of times the officers intentionally don't see it because they see it, they have to do something. And then if they do something, then they have to be staying past their shift.
Do you think that, do you guys like plan your fights for that time?
And here, most of the fights are probably spontaneous, meaning like something reaches a boiling point and like a fist fight or something happens. In the mediums, it's not like that at all. There may be like 10% of fights are spontaneous. The rest are like strategically planned, and they're normally people getting stabbed. At least in the gang culture, the person that's going to stab you is the same person that like you walk with and talk to every day. Like they have complete trust in you. Like you see that a lot. Like if a gang member does something wrong, they will get on that like everything's cool for a couple weeks, and then get them to the right spot on the walk where there's no cameras, and proceed to
stab them.
Yeah.
So do they stab them anywhere, or is it like a planned stab to like injure but not?
We had this thing that actually started in New York, but was real big, and one of the white gangs used to do it a lot, and it's called a $1.50. Do you know what that is if I say that? A $1.50?
No.
Alright, so a $1.50 is where you take a razor from commissary and you pop it out of its cartridge. And a brand new razor is extremely sharp. So you take one or two of them and people dump them into a toothbrush or anything hard. So like as close to like a like an X-Acto knife or something you would see in like
Mhm.
shop class. And they cut them in the face, like on their cheek. Because the ideal is to give somebody 150 stitches.
Oh. What?
Yeah, and I've seen some vicious ones. Like that's the worst thing. Like, and the blood is just like profuse. It's so hard to stop the bleeding because the cut is so deep and like sharp. Like it just rips through your skin.
What could someone do that's so terrible that they would deserve that?
Originally, like the $1.50 was originally for people that were rats, people that were telling them something. The reason you cut somebody on their face like that is so that moving forward, if he went to a different institution or wherever he went, like in the underworld, in prison, we would know, all right, that dude's a rat. Like that's why his face is cut like that. Like he told us about it. But over the years, it's just been done for anything. Like not just telling. Like you see people just get cut for whatever. Most disputes are over drugs and money. But I've seen some vicious ones. Like the worst like assault I've ever seen. It was I was probably in prison like 2 or 3 weeks, and it was breakfast time. It's like 4:30 in the morning. And the prison I was in had like 3,200 inmates. So a lot of people. So the cafeteria is huge. Like think of like a school cafeteria, but maybe even bigger. And the tables were like a bunch of 4-man tables, like spread throughout. And there's so many people eating that like around the perimeter is a line of people waiting to grab their trays. Fill it up completely. And as soon as it fills up completely, they start getting up immediately. You have like 3 minutes to eat. I was eating breakfast. It's like 4:30 in the morning, just trying to enjoy my grits and eggs. And I was at the table with a Spanish guy, and another like group of Spanish guys walked up behind him, and of course he like was led to believe he wasn't in danger at that time. At least that's how he acted. And one of them like leaned down and like whispered something in his ear, and as he did, he reached around him and cut him so fast right across his neck with a razor blade. Like it went from like ear to almost your other ear, like on your neck, and it was so fastly done that like the guy stood back up and just started walking down like he was in line to go get his tray. And the crazy thing about those cuts is they don't open up immediately. At first, like I guess you feel like you got scratched. You don't know what happened. I didn't realize it. I don't think the kid realized that he was cut yet. So I'm just like sitting there eating my food, looking up at him, and then he reaches up and he grabs his neck because I guess it felt like he was scratched or whatever he did. And as soon as he touched his neck, it just opened like folded over. And that was the most disgusting thing I've probably ever seen to this fucking day. That was rough. And then he stood up, and when he stood up, the guard called him because he's like this random guy standing up in the middle of the chow hall. And they, of course, they rushed him out, and we got hurried back to our buildings and everything. And,
What'd you do? When you were sitting next to him, what'd you do?
Well, you know what's crazy is, in the real world, if you were at McDonald's and you saw a guy get cut like that, you would stand up or move or like maybe get somebody's attention. The normal response is to try to like help that individual. But you learn to like fight that urge. And I was new in prison, so like it was hard for me to just sit there motionless. You don't want to draw any attention because even if you're not like telling the cops, hey, somebody got stabbed, if you're the one drawing attention to it and then they see it, that's like borderline telling, if that makes sense. So I just kind of sat there and just like looked at him and then looked down at my tray because I couldn't. You see something that close and it's you don't really want to look at it. So I just tried to ignore it. Back to fighting downstairs. I can hear what sounds like. If you've ever been in a gym and you hear like people play basketball, how their shoes like squeak over the floor, yeah, that's the sound. So I can hear it. They're definitely going back at it, and it sounds like it's more than just two people.
Are they yelling?
No, they're quiet. But very rarely in here is it like a one-on-one fight because like probably 70% of people are in some type of organization.
How do you fight silently?
I mean, well, they're not like yelling. Like, they're not going to be like, I don't know why you would be screaming if you were fighting. Have you ever watched like a UFC fight? They don't scream at each other while they fight.
Yeah, but I would think that they've got something to say, like they're fighting. Planned fight. It's not like they're going for a title.
No, that's true, but I don't know, you're just busy fighting. And everybody else, that's how you really know that something's going on, like something's wrong in prison. It's not what's happening. Oh, how do you know something's about to happen? It's not that anything's happening. It's the lack of shit that's happening. Like, it gets so quiet, like a pin's gonna drop. There are times where I would come out of my cell, and like I might not have any idea that like there's drama, like two organizations are about to fight, but it's like the air gets thick. You can just feel it, like this tension in the air, like the oxygen's being sucked out of the room, and it gets eerily quiet. Prison is not a quiet place, so when it gets quiet, you know something's about to happen.
Are you going to be able to find out what brought on this giant fight?
I'm sure it will, and to be honest, I'm surprised because normally after somebody gets fucked up like that, the winner of that fight is normally like, bro, tells the loser, like, you got to get the fuck out of here. Like, I'm not going to now, I can't sleep comfortably on this tier if I just whooped your ass and knowing that any time you might stab me or do something to me. So they force the other person to check in.
Which means to leave. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't always happen. There's some, like, weird codes, like honor. I've seen people that literally hate each other, despise each other, get in a fight, and one guy be savagely beat up, black and blue, like destroyed. So if he leaves his cell, he will be noticed by a cop and immediately be put on like administrative segregation or to do some type of investigation. So even if he doesn't tell about the fight, he's at least going to go in segregation so they know if he's like, what the fuck happened. So that even people like don't like each other will then proceed to feed that person for like 2 or 3 weeks.
So they can heal.
Yeah, like, all right, I'll make sure, all right, bro, don't leave the cell, and they'll come to him, like, every day.
Wait, so someone will beat someone up and then take care of them while they heal?
It's not done from, like, any, like, moral high ground. It's like, oh, I feel bad. It's completely, like, self-seeking, because all they want to do is make sure they don't get in trouble.
Because they're using their own commissary?
Yeah, but they're doing that because it's much better to kick out $20 in commissary than it is to go to lockup.
The person who is all, like, fucked up is not going to say who did it to them.
You'd be very surprised. I know you guys...
I thought you don't do that.
Yeah, I can say, I think that every generation says this, like, this next generation's fucked up. But I'm older now. So I'm like in the middle generation. You got the older guys above me, and then the younger guys. There's no honor amongst these anymore. And telling now is just another tool in the toolbox of like criminals. You see it a lot. The organizations will tell on another organization. You see it a lot with people who like sell contraband in the prison. Like one guy will tell on another guy to get him out of there, so he can monopolize the market. Telling, yeah, you'd be surprised.
Well, that doesn't sound very prison.
It doesn't sound very gangster, does it? It sounds like very...
No, it doesn't.
No. Yeah, no, there's no honor among thieves, I guess, anymore, as far as like that goes.
So listen, will you be able to find out what this fight's about? Yeah.
Scoop? Yeah, I'm sure that people will start gossiping. That's another thing, like prison is very gossip.
Men like to gossip? Oh, what?
Yeah, dudes gossip. One thing is another thing that will get you in a lot of shit fast. One thing you learn that I've learned to like keep me safe and out of shit throughout my incarceration is you learn that like reticence, like is a virtue, like keeping your mouth shut. Like don't see anything, don't say anything. Like even if you think you're helping somebody, it's better off just to not say anything because like it seems like no good deed goes unpunished around here.
How often did you see fights break out in Medium?
I would say for at least 11 or 12 years straight that I was at Medium, I witnessed at least 10 stabbings per year that I like witnessed.
That's a lot of stabbings.
But you come like immune to it, like where you don't even like acknowledge it anymore.
Where were these happening?
A lot of times it happens on the walk, like in prison. Where I'm at now is like a jail. Everything is inside. But in prison, like, the housing units are individual buildings. And your chow hall is an individual building. The gym, the yard, these are all like, it's a huge compound. So normally, it happens like on the walk to chow. You see it a lot, especially at breakfast time when it's dark out. That's where you see like a lot of the violence. But you have some people that like if there's a hard enough grudge, especially in media, where you have people that have like 50, 60 years. I mean, you might have a kid that's 22 years old who's just sentenced to 70 years in prison, and he is trying to make a name for himself in a gang. I've seen people in the middle of the chow hall just sit there and wait for somebody to come in and just get up and like just do whatever they can to try to like to kill the guy, for lack of a better word. I see the craziest thing I see was I was at a jail like serving food, and it's just like a cafeteria line. Like people come through, they like put their tray down, you serve food. I watched a guy come into the kitchen, walk around the lines, and like it's all like kitchen workers, walk right past the officers that are standing there because we're not really paying attention, and stab the guy that was like literally right next to me serving potatoes.
And then just walk out?
No, that's all what happened. He stabbed him. We all backed up, and everybody was like, "What the fuck is going on?" And then the cops came in and maced everything. So all the food had to be thrown away. I think it was like 11 o'clock, and then we ended up serving lunch at like 3 p.m. because we had to remake all the food. That's like the protocol if they maced the kitchen.
Did he pick this guy for a reason, or was it like, I gotta make a name for myself?
60 seconds remaining.
I know people think like that, but there's no random acts of violence. It doesn't happen. Not that it doesn't happen, but even if somebody's like being picked on, I don't know. I believe there's a reason for everything. Like people maybe might not be aware that they're making themselves victims, but they are.
So getting back to the fight, what did it turn out to be?
All right, so later on, I was besieged because it sounded 100% like a fight. It had all the cues, the basketball feet, the tier was dead silent, people were watching, so it looked like a fight. However, it was not. What it was somebody having an episode. We call it epi for short. It happens all day long. People are strung out on drugs. They smoke like hallucinogens that are called K2. And this guy was in a cell with like multiple people smoking. At one point, he had like a psychotic snap, thought they were trying to attack him, ran out of the cell aggressively, like pushing people away from him, trying to get away from somebody who wasn't attacking him. So then they tried to get him back in the cell, because not only is there an officer not that far away, but there's also cameras on the tier, and you don't want to draw attention. So they're trying to get him back into the cell, and he's like running all over the tier, high out of his mind, thinking people are trying to attack him. And later on, actually, as it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, I got up, and as I walked down the steps, I had to walk past this guy who was coming the other way on the steps, standing, shirt off, literally both his hands together like he was about to catch something, just throwing up into his hands profusely. Like that's what we deal with all day long in here. It's like you have like zombies that are just strung out on drugs. Like that wasn't a fight. It was a dude freaking out because he was high as fuck.
So I noticed when we were on the phone once, there was like a lot of laughter and you were joking around with a couple of other guys, and I was surprised to hear sounds that were just so normal, like regular life out here.
Yeah, well, that takes a lot of time because at first it's so unnatural and insane to be in prison, but your brain finds a way to adapt. So, yeah, I think that's a lot to talk about, like how it is to live in prison and still find happiness and how to make it and cope with the day in and day out.